Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.
Hello and welcome to Northeast Tonight, the show that decodes the region. Assam or the Northeast is not known for extreme Islamist radicalization. But viewers, that cannot be a reason for complacency. More so after the Delhi police, in collaboration with their Assam counterparts, earlier this week arrested 3 Muslim youths from Gwalpara district in western Assam on charges of hatching a terror plot. The police said the 3 boys, all under 25, were ISIS-inspired self-radicalized men from whose possession IEDs and explosive materials were recovered. Initial reports said they were planning to carry out a bomb attack at a local mela and then in New Delhi. Police now suspect they could be even members of an ISIS sleeper cell or part of a module of some other Islamist terror outfit. Several questions arise. Are they really self-radicalized men, or have they been indoctrinated by outsiders? Did the trio work on their own, making bombs, looking at ISIS training videos, or did they receive outside support? What could be the pull factors of these 3 boys who did odd jobs to earn a living towards terrorism? What is the lesson from this for the authorities, including community leaders? To discuss the subject, I am joined from New Delhi by Dr. Ajay Sahni, one of India's best-known counter-terrorism experts, who is the Executive Director at the Institute for Conflict Management. I also have Mr. Sultan Sahin, editor of the Delhi-based NewAgeIslam.com, and someone who has been working on de-radicalization. And joining me at our studios here in Guwahati are former Assam DGP, Mr. Mohan Raj, sociologist Dr. A.N.S. Ahmed, former Assam IGP, Mr. S.P. Kaur, and Mr. Arunav Goswami from the Center for Development and Peace Studies, a leading think tank. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the discussions, let us take a look at some key pointers insofar as Islamist radicalization in Assam is concerned. Take a look. All right, 6th of April 2000, document titled ISI Activities in Assam presented in Assam Assembly, first ever attempt by the government to compile the strategy by Islamist militants in the state. November 2006, police estimated around 200 youths trained in Bangladesh by Harkatul Mujahideen operating in Assam. JMB militants arrested from different parts of Assam since 2001. This was in November 2006. July 2009, Assam minister says 182 cadres of Muslim United Liberation Tigers Front of Assam and Harkatul Mujahideen are operating in the state. October 2nd, 2014, explosion in a house in Khagragar, locality of Burdwan in West Bengal. 2 suspected JMB terrorists killed and a 3rd injured. Terrorists traced to Assam. December 6, 2014, Muhammad Shahnur Alam, a key suspect in the Burdwan blast case, arrested from Nalbari district of Assam. August 29, 2019, Special NIA Court convicted 19 accused, including 3 from Assam, in connection with the Burdwan blast case. October 17, 2019, a 25-year-old JMB terrorist identified as Azharuddin was arrested from Barpeta. He was absconding since 2014 Burdwan blast. So viewers, these are some of the instances of Islamist activities which were been recorded in the state of Assam. Let me go to you first, Dr. Ajay Sahni in New Delhi. Dr. Sahni, we will soon get to Dr. Ajay Sahni. Let me go to Mr. Sultan Sahin in New Delhi, editor of New Age Islam. As I have said, someone who is working on de-radicalization. Mr. Sultan Sahin, what according to you are the pull factors towards radical Islam in the Indian context? Mr. Sultan Sahin.
You see, the pull factors here are the same as elsewhere in other countries around the world. Basically, what happens is that the Islamic theology, that the understanding of Islam that is taught in our madrasas and that is available online, is something which gives a very different version of Islam to the people who have a religious bent of mind. It tells them that Islam has come to rule the world and it is the duty, religious duty of every Muslim to help Islam dominate the world. So primarily, once they are brainwashed into thinking like this, which is not actually true, because Quran and Hadith does not ask us to struggle and fight in this way. But once they are convinced of this, then they start looking for material online, particularly these days, and then they get converted to the radical ideologies.
All right, I'll come back to you, Mr. Sultan Sahin. Mr. Mohan Raj, suddenly out of the blue, 3 boys, all under 25, have been arrested. The Delhi police, who did this operation in collaboration with the police in Gwalpara, that is the Assam police, said that these were self-radicalized men, and they suspect that these were ISIS-inspired, and some even thinks that these are part of the ISIS sleeper cell. Are you surprised, or do you think this was only expected?
Well, the entire motivation, in my opinion, comes from the ideology. And see, we may say the Islamic thinkers may debate on the issue whether Islam is a religion of peace or a religion of violence. This I am not going to into it, because there are different opinions on it. But the one simple empirical factor to be taken into account is that if you look at the world today, maximum number of terrorist organizations are Islamist in nature. So there must be some reason behind it. And there are some lot of thinkers, liberal thinkers even in Pakistan. For example, Hassan Nizar is one of them. He is a journalist and a thinker. He appears very frequently on Pakistan TV. And you have Tariq Fatah, who is from Pakistan.
Yeah, but in the Assam context, how do you look at the arrest of these 3 people?
See, what happens is Assam is not known for this kind of a radicalization so far. But today internet is accessible to everybody, and they may get radicalized, but where is that motivation coming from? Because ultimately, if you see to it, that in Pakistan most of the madrasas are run by the Deobandis, and so it is in India, and India and Pakistan are one at one time. So there is more or less the same strain of thinking, because most of them are Sunni Muslims, and most of the madrasas are run by the Deobandis.
Right.
So what is taught? See, according to Hassan Nisar, a Pakistani, he says that in the madrasas, what they teach is that Islam is the best religion, number one. Number two, the Muslims have a right to rule the world, and in fact, they only have a right to rule the world, and all the Muslims, it is the duty of all the Muslims to help there in that connection, and they should wage a jihad against all the kafirs, etc. This kind of a thing is taught in the madrasas in Pakistan. I am not sure what exactly is being done in India.
Okay. So now a basic point which Mohan Raj is making is that today, with the access for the internet, it is not difficult for people to get radicalized. Dr. N.S. Ahmed, what are your thoughts? Because I have given some examples. Assam, as I've said in my introduction, Assam is not known for radical Islamist ideas. The Muslims in Assam do not practice radical Islam. They're fairly liberal, as do most Muslims in the country. But that does not leave any scope for complacency. But considering the location of Assam, considering that we have a long porous border with Bangladesh, do you think one has to be constantly on the alert in a place like Assam? How do you look at it?
Yeah, you said.
No, I'm asking this question to Dr. Islam. Yes, yes, Dr. Ahmed.
Are you asking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. My view is this, that since Assam is strategically located in an area which is surrounded by 4 countries, almost 4 countries, Bangladesh, then Bhutan, and to a certain extent People's Republic of China, not very closely, then Burma. And therefore, the strategically very important place,
Yeah.
this state. And at the same time, since there has been lot of movements towards radicalization in Bangladesh, which is our neighbor country.
Right.
And there are a number of outfits, the Huji, JMB and so on and so forth.
Active in Bangladesh.
Yes, they are very active, and it is very easy to cross the border and go to Bangladesh. We had also Alpha and other organization outfits who were
So you're basically
working
saying
there.
that the location of Assam
Locational
is
position.
all the more makes the state vulnerable to this kind of cross-border movements and cross-border transmission of ideas, and therefore radicalization is something which is one cannot be surprised if you find a few elements, radical elements in the state. That's what is the point which Dr. A.N.S. Ahmed is making.
Yes.
Okay, we are getting the line to Dr. A.N.S. Dr. Azay Sani in New Delhi. Dr. Azay Sani, Executive Director of the Institute for Conflict Management, one of India's leading counter-terrorism experts. Dr. Azay Sani, welcome. We are holding this debate in the context of the arrest of 3 young men from Western Assam who the Delhi police, which conducted these operations, say are ISIS-inspired. My question to you, Assam is not known for extreme Islamist radicalization, although it has got a large Muslim population. Dr. Azay Sani, in this backdrop, what could be the pull factors? Are you surprised at the sudden arrest of these 3 people who are described as ISIS-inspired men?
I would like to suggest that all this should be approached in a far more, a contextual way. You may recall last year you had the arrest of a handful of Hizbul Mujahideen cadres.
Yes.
At that point of time, there was a sort of a hysteria built up over the arrival of Hizbul Mujahideen in Assam. What usually happens is these are small individuals or small groups that sort of grow around a single individual or 2 or 3 individuals. Here we have a small group of friends who seem to have got together to do this. They do not represent any wider trend. You can have today, given the media that we have, the kind of propaganda on social media as well, you can have self-radicalization occurring almost anywhere. No part of the country or the world is actually immune to this kind of radicalization. I'd like to also suggest that you've got a lot of intelligence and enforcement successes coming in. You have these people being arrested at a stage where their plans and projects are at a very incipient stage, well before they are able to do harm. So I think the threat, let us say the vulnerability is always there, but the threat is not extraordinary.
Threat is not extraordinary. Okay, I'm coming back to you in a minute, Dr. Azay Sani. Mr. Speaker, you have served in the Assam Police as your esteemed colleague, Mr. Mohan Raj. Now, Dr. Azay Sani is saying that in the days of the internet, it's not very difficult to get radicalized or rather self-radicalized, but you have to look at it much more in a focused manner rather than getting knee-jerk reactions. Now Assam is in the grip of ISIS. It's not like that. What is your view? How do you look at this arrest in the wake of these recent arrests?
Well, I think I agree with Dr. Sahani very much that it's not a big problem as such in Assam or for that matter in the Northeast. But maybe here and there 1 or 2 cases happening, and this is a success of the intelligence agencies and also of the police, be it from Delhi or from Assam police, whatever. The way they are doing it, it's praiseworthy. It's really good that these things are being detected. The small sleeper cells are being caught.
Yeah.
The main issue here in India is Kashmir. In Kashmir, they have made a big hub of it.
They have made a
big hub
okay.
of terrorist activities, Islamic terrorism. First, to begin with, that was only for a state, independence or joining Pakistan or that kind of thing. Later on, they brought in religion into it, and then they took to terrorism.
So, how are you linking it up to the situation in Assam or for that matter the Northeast?
That might spread. We never know because it's open.
So, moral of the story is that you were saying is that one cannot be complacent. That's what you were saying.
That's right.
Because there is already a precedent. I'll come back to you. I'm going to Azay Sani once again. Arnav, how do you look at these arrests? Because you have been working on Islamist terrorism and other terrorism related issues in the Northeast for almost a decade now.
Yeah. See, the main thing which we have to see here is that the seepage of idea, this idea of radicalization is slowly coming in, which first we have seen in 2014 when Shahnur Alam was first arrested, which showed that many people in interior areas in Nalbari and Baksa district of Assam, the radical thoughts are seeping among the local population, even though it's a small number. The arrests prove that. Now again we have seen arrest of 3 people in Gwalpara, which has been inspired by an ISIS module, as they say. But now you see, a few months ago in May, the Telegram application, which is just like WhatsApp, this is the application which is mostly used by ISIS and the pro-ISIS groups. There were messaging going on in the Telegram app where they were talking about lone wolf attacks in areas bordering Bangladesh, and in Indian shared boundaries in Bangladesh. So you see, this kind of ideas are easily, there are a section of population who may get influenced. So the problem here is the seepage of idea that has come into this.
Seepage of ideas, seepage of ideas, and of course once again the location of Assam, that is what people are talking about. Dr. Ajay Sani, is it seepage of ideas considering the border? Do you think there are possible indoctrination attempts, even if it is online or in person, considering that Assam has a history of insurgency, starting from ethnic insurgency to even Maoist insurgency? Do you think there is a linkage? Do you think people are working on their own, or do you think it could be a wider network?
Look, first of all, I won't link the border with the seepage of ideas. We had Islamic State recruitment in Kerala. Now that's not a border area. We've had it in Mumbai. We've had it in Pune. So this is the basic reach of the social media today, which allows these ideas to go just about everywhere. Having said this, you must also understand that ideas take root. There's nothing called, I would like to assert, nothing called self-radicalization entirely. People don't go onto the internet and suddenly become radicalized. Radical individuals go onto the internet looking for specific, they engage in certain clearly directed search behavior. I look for Islamist sites. I look for terrorist sites. I look for something that will help me get recruited or help me find information to build explosives or other tactics that could help me launch a terrorist attack. So there is also a local context where individuals sort of undergo, you might say pre-radicalization, after which they go onto the net for further detailing.
Okay.
Having said this, please understand also that these people's competence is very low. They do not constitute the kind of risk that a networked organization would constitute. For instance, in this arrest just now, we understand that the explosive device they had developed was very similar to the explosive device used in the Bhopal-Ujjain Express blast in 2016.
True. Yes.
Now, that was a device that was placed in a packed, unreserved compartment, and only 12 persons got injured. There was no fatality. So understand that it is also, while we must not ignore or downplay the threat, we must also understand that these people do not have the capacity or the wherewithal on the networks to do extreme harm. They can do some limited harm, but they cannot do the kind of harm that a networked organization would.
Right. Now, Mr. Mohan Raj and Mr. Kaur, I'm coming to you along with Dr. Ahmed. But Mr. Sultan Sahin, once again, before I move to another aspect of this whole issue, do you think states bordering, for example, Bangladesh are more vulnerable, as Dr. Ahmed was saying? So, and we all know so many Islamist terror groups are still very, very active in Bangladesh. Only yesterday, the Bangladesh courts have given death penalty to that bakery killing, which was the biggest in the country, where more than 20 people were killed in that hostage situation. Mr. Sultan Sahin, do you think states bordering Bangladesh are more vulnerable?
Certainly, certainly, states bordering Bangladesh, states bordering Pakistan for that matter, would naturally be more vulnerable. There are elements, you see, there has been a great deal of radicalization of Muslims in Pakistan and Bangladesh as well. Our country has been somewhat safe in the sense that our ulama have not been preaching radicalization directly. The books available in our madrasas, taught in our madrasas and available in Islamic libraries, etc., or give that impression, create room for Islamic radicalization, but directly there is no such preaching going on in this country. However, in the bordering areas, it is so rampant, it is so open, thousands of people gather to listen to ulama who will talk radical
Right.
Islam.
Okay. Now, Dr. Ahmed, is there a local context? And if so, what is the local pull factor for Muslims? There is a small section of, there is a Muslim population of more than 30% in Assam. We have got a very strong migrant population. We have got a porous border. We have issues concerning illegal migration into the state. So these are some of the local contacts. Do you think that makes the situation much more complex, and do you think that makes the security agencies, do you think, needs to be much more vigilant and not take anything for granted?
Yeah, actually, there are two things which are very important according to me. One is the spread of Wahhabi Islam. Wahhabi Islam, I actually conducted a study, completed a study on Wahhabi Islam. And while undertaking this, I found that there are many people who believe in Wahhabi Islam, and Wahhabi Islam again has got link with what is called extremism, extreme ideas of Islam, extreme type of political and religious philosophy. And that definitely creates certain kind of conditions, intellectual or whatever you may say like that, religious consideration for going for terrorism or violence. Because what they are taught about Wahhabi Islam, that is the first step towards terrorism.
So you are saying that you are saying that I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
You are trying to make a point that Wahhabi Islam, there is a tendency that you are seeing a trend where Wahhabi Islam is spreading. Everybody may or may not agree with your view that Wahhabi Islam is such a real threat in the Northeast, or for that matter in Assam. That's a matter of debate. I'll come back to you, Dr. Ahmed. But Mr. Mohanraj, how do you look? Is there a linkage? Because we have got a context where, as I have asked Dr. Azaisani, we have ethnic insurgencies, we have Daulfa, we have got the tribal insurgent groups, we have even Naxalism in Assam. In that context, do you think it is the general atmosphere that could also lead people to do these kind of things? Do you think that could be one of the reasons?
Look, the militants are basically targeting the Muslim majority areas. Like Dr. Ajasani said that Kerala is a place, you see, it's not adjacent to neither Pakistan or Bangladesh, but it has been targeted. And quite a number of Keralites had gone to Afghanistan to fight on behalf of ISIS, and they have been arrested also. So this kind of a thing is happening. It's, one thing is that if in a Muslim majority area, it is easy to get radicalized. Of course, internet is also there, and plus the mullahs. You see, as this Canadian citizen who was earlier what's his name, Tariq Fatah said, there are two kinds of Islam. One is Allah's Islam and another is mullah's Islam. So now the mullahs are the people who normally do the radicalization. What I have heard is that in Assam, earlier it was very good. Most of the Maulvis used to be from Assam. Nowadays, I am told that
there are Maulvis from outside. So things
Bihar, especially Bihar, quite a number of them have come.
Right.
And for the last few years, we find that in Assam, nobody used to wear burqa. And you find that quite a number of even Assamese Muslims have started wearing burqa. So obviously, there is a certain amount of radicalization taking place.
All right. I'll come back to you. Now, Mr. Speaker, basically, do you consider the situation grim? Do you consider, or do you think these are one-off cases where they don't have much of a potential? As Dr. Azaisani said, neither the expertise nor that motivation to carry on, because large number of people, as we all know, are absolutely practitioners of liberal Islam in the state, because whenever this is known as the land of Honkar and Ajahn, Honkar meaning the great saint of Assam, Srimanta Honkardev, and Azan means we are referring to Azan Fakir, the Sufi saint. So this is described as the land of Azan, Sankar Azan. So in this kind of a liberal background, do you think these are one-off cases, or we have to create more awareness?
Well, we must create more awareness, there is no doubt about it. But the thing is that basically in the northeastern region, it is kind of a romance for these semi-literate type of people who are getting into these sleeper cells and all those things. They are novices, they are just in the learning process. So out of that, they have been doing that kind of adventurism they started, and that's why they have been failing. But basic problem here is that Pakistan has been exporting terror to Kashmir, to J&K and to the rest of India.
Do you think they are trying to export via Bangladesh to northeast?
Well, yes, they are doing it. They in fact, till some time back, they had this with Bangladesh intelligence. They had a tie-up, in fact.
Yes. Dr. Azhar Sani, I'll go for a break, but before that, Dr. Sani, that same question goes to you. Considering that there is an ecosystem of terror already prevalent in Assam, or for that matter the whole of the northeast, in that context, in that backdrop, is it easier for such kind of elements to actually thrive, or for that matter try to grow?
Wasbir, if you go back even a decade ago, where I think this ecosystem was far more, shall we say, enveloping, far more active, or a decade and a half ago, we are seeing a continuous decline of militancy, not only in Assam but across the northeast. So I would like to suggest that any kind of environmental push factors would be declining. Also, I'd like to make a very strong point over here about local cultures. I do remember when the initial phase of, I think these mulfa, multa and all had started off, the local communities had called the boys in and said, look, this is not our way.
Right.
So we have to treat this kind of Islamism as a separate sort of a trend or a stream. I don't think it draws from ulfa. You may also remember that the early instances of Islamist extremism, terrorism that occurred in Assam were a reaction to majoritarian extremism from the Ulfa or some, other groups, or in the Bodo areas, where they were trying to expel or had carried out some attacks or atrocities against Muslims. So that dynamic has diluted. It's not strong as it was, say, 15 years ago or 10 years ago. So I think we are now seeing a situation where the ecosystem is very weak, and these are simply very weak individual initiatives by small, I think the word adventurism was used, by small groups who are attracted by the idea of the gun, of going out and killing or something on those lines.
All right. Dr. Azhar Sani, I'm coming back to you. We'll go for a very short commercial break. Don't go away. I'll be right back in conversation with an esteemed panel on the issue beating the ISIS. Welcome back. Mr. Sultan Sahin, a lot of people talk about a link between poverty, illiteracy and less of livelihood options or lack of livelihood options as pull factors to terrorism. Do you agree with this general concept?
Not really, not really. In fact, the people who are getting attracted to terrorism now, or Islamist terrorism I should say, now are people who are very highly educated, people who come from business families, who are well settled, who have good jobs and good families, etc. And it is the theology, it is the ideology which is attracting them, so much so that they leave everything. And you see, deciding to kill yourself in order to kill others is not an easy decision. And these, if people who are well educated, who are well settled, who have good families, even in Sri Lanka's case, you must have seen, children from industrialist families have gone into this, and this around the world, this is what is happening. So it is the pull of the theology, pull of the radical ideology that is, very, very much evident in this case.
Okay, Dr. Ahmed, what Sultan Sahin is saying is also correct. It's not just poverty, but if we look at it, if we place that question in the Assam context, look at these three youths. Look at these three youths. One was working temporarily in an Aadhaar, card issuing center. One was a driver. One was doing an odd job. These are extremely poor people. And if you look at some of the other instances which you have shown in the graphics, or which Arnab has been talking about, I think they come from a very lower strata of society, very, very economically challenged kind of society. So do you see a difference, that it's a different situation in Assam actually?
Yes, there is a kind of difference, because as you have already stated that in Kerala it may be a different set of people coming from extremely rich strata of the society. In Sri Lanka it may so happen. In European countries you have seen that a number of people who were joined IS, they belong to very well-to-do families, highly educated. Even in this bakery case, Bangladesh Dhaka bakery case, many of the terrorists belong to very highly educated people,
families.
And also they belong to fabulously rich families. So in case of Assam, the three persons who were reprehended, in earlier case in 2018, Comrade Zaman was arrested. He also comes from a very poor family. But I don't.
So what is the point? What is the point that you are trying to make?
I want to.
You see a difference there.
The difference is there, but it is very difficult to correlate between poverty and illiteracy
and terrorism. Okay, Arnav, do you have a different view? I'm coming to you, Mr. Mohanraj and Dr. Azizani.
I don't agree with this at all. Achha, you are
Yes, Arnav.
No, I think what Abu Sar is saying, it's almost, I want to almost say the same thing, because poverty and illiteracy is not necessarily a compelling feature which makes a person take to terrorism. It is one of the pull factors, but it not necessarily that all those.
So it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's what. And here I would just like to add one more point in Assam context. The Home Ministry had banned the Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh (JMB) in May 2019, and in the same notification, they have talked about how JMB has formed madrasas and training camps in the border areas along the West Bengal Bangladesh border, and they have set up madrasas and bought some imams to teach the students. That was what I was saying, the seepage of ideas that's coming from Bangladesh to West Bengal, and Assam is not far behind. So here the local community has to play a very important role, especially in those areas bordering Bangladesh, Assam, to not let people influenced by those ideas.
May I just add one point?
Yeah.
May I just add one point? When Comrade Zaman was arrested, the response of Jamunamukh, where he belongs, that was very remarkable. They all came out, people came out in big numbers, and they protested against it. And the family to which these Comrade Zaman and 6 other, they were excommunicated by the
community. So community has no real support.
Has a role to play, they are playing the role.
Even Mr. Mohanraj, I'm coming to you after this, Dr. Azizani. Mr. Mohanraj, even in this, after this 3 arrests in Gwalpara 3 to 4 days back, I think the community, came out in large numbers, and they said that we condemn this and we want the authorities to give them the maximum punishment, so that there is a deterrence for people later on to indulge in any kind of adventurism like this. So this is a positive role that the community is playing.
Yes, that is a very good thing, and that is to be appreciated. But one has to understand that they almost missed blasting. See, it was the last day of that function, and they had gone there and they were arrested. and if they had not arrested, probably there would have been a big disaster in that place. So, I think we should be thankful that for the security agencies who have taken action, but instead of speculating, I think it is now these 3 people are in custody and they should be thoroughly interrogated as to how, where the motivation came from.
I'm sure the security agencies are
That's
going
what
to
I'm saying.
do exactly that.
They should do that.
They will
and
exactly that.
Secondly, I do not think that poverty is in any way related to it, because there are a lot of poor people. Out of a lot of poor people, only these 3 people. Why did they get radicalized?
That is what perhaps
So
Dr. Azaisani is saying. That is what perhaps
mindset.
Dr. Azaisani is saying, that we should not read too much into this, but that does not absolve us from being less vigilant.
Even if you think of it as a possibility, it can be 1% possible.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a major, this thing is that radicalization. See, they are already radicalized through some groups, and obtaining explosives, etc., is not very difficult in Assam, because they are coming into contact with various terror groups. Now, what is to be found out is that these 3 boys, how did they get radicalized, to whom they are linked, and they have to sort of establish.
Exactly. These are the good points. How did they get radicalized, and to whom they are linked? Dr. Azaisani, we are basically talking about some of the pull factors is poverty. One of the reasons, a lot of their diverse opinions, as you have heard in the panel here. But what is the bigger danger? Is it the idea, or is it the location? Is it the availability of explosives and other materials, or is it the internet?
I don't think it is any one of these or exclusively. You see, when you start studying this, and there have been numberless studies on the so-called root causes, and no study has ever been able to identify any set of circumstances which could be considered either necessary or sufficient for terrorist mobilization. Each case has its own unique character. You have complete mavericks. You have people, there was an arrest in Calcutta by the NIA some years ago, where the person was motivated only by the idea of going and joining the IS Islamic State, so that he could kill people, cut people's heads off, So some people are just inspired by that kind of brutality. There are cases in America where individuals have been mobilized because they have become obsessed with violence while playing video games. This has got nothing to do with religion, it's got nothing to do with any of this. But then they felt that if they joined the Islamic State, they would be able to realize their fantasies. So even to speak of, the ideology, and I am not trying to say the ideology isn't important, it's not really so much the ideology, but the groups and their activities and their leaderships that sort of inspire individuals to go and join, or to act in concert with such groups. I see the Islamic State, I see the kind of violence they do, the kind of videos they put up, and I say I want to be part of this because my local circumstances, whether I'm angry with the state or I'm just someone who's been watching violent films or playing violent games, or I have been exposed to some kind of violent ideology. But here is a group which shows me what to do with my anger or my sentiments.
So they're trying to channelize that energy.
And I manifest this.
These terror groups, they are making people channelize that small section of people channelize their wrong energies into this kind of terror acts. I'm coming back to you once again, Mr. Speaker. As Dr. Sani was saying, is it a combination of everything? How do you see a link between illegal migration and these kind of odd instances of Islamist terror, or people trying to get radicalized, or allowing themselves to do these kind of things?
I think migration has nothing to do with this, with so-called Islamic terrorism. Actually, Islamic terrorism flourishes in those areas where there is funding, some kind of funding, whether it is from Wahhabi group or whichever country it is. or for example from Pakistan. Pakistan is again doing a lot of drug trade and this and that is the where the money coming. Now why in Kashmir this set of from HM Hizbul Mujahideen to LET and all those characters, how could they flourish? That's because they had a lot of funding. JKLF, these things have a lot of funding. As soon as you can cut off the funding part of it, everything will automatically come to a halt. So that is the main issue here. In Assam and in the Northeast, that kind of funding could not be channelized by any of the foreign countries, our adversaries. I mean, our adversary means there is one real adversary, that is Pakistan.
Yeah.
And they haven't been able to, because Bangladesh is quite friendly now, and in fact they are going to hang another 16 people within days or maybe in a couple of weeks, these fellows, because of one incident only. There's something, I mean...
So they are basically showing their toughness against terrorism.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sultan Sahin, police are now saying that these 3 youths in Assam are self-radicalized. My question is, does this makes them less of a radical? Does this make them less of a radical? Sultan Sahin.
I don't think so, because in fact self-radicalization can be even more harmful, in the sense that these people are very much focused on what they are doing and they spend a lot of time studying. And that's why the kind of work I do, I try to see that these people, when they are working online and they are radicalizing themselves, in that process they get to reach even us, people like us, and who can give them a very different interpretation of the Islamic theology that is given to them. But the problem is that what they are told by Islamic radicals is also found in Islamic theological books. So the reason why Islamic radicals are so successful is that they are not saying anything particularly very new. You see, Osama bin Laden or ISIS did not fall from the sky. Their theology is based on the consensus theology of all schools of thought, because this theology is based in a very different world. We are today living in a very different world. We are not living in the world where you could conquer a territory and capture it and legitimately occupy it. Today we are living in a very difficult world. We have United Nations Charter under which we work, and all countries in the world have accepted that. So what these people are thinking is pure madness. Still, it is going on.
Okay, Dr. Ahmed, you have done that study, that rather exhaustive study on the madrasas of Assam. Now, it is also true that the government of Assam also runs madrasas, which are under the government board. Now they are introducing modern education, the normal syllabus, the normal courses. It is a madrasa. Madrasa education is of course definitely going to be there, but some of the madrasas are introducing normal courses, not just the government run madrasas, but even privately run madrasas in Assam. There are a lot of madrasas that are trying to, educate the students in normal curriculum. I think that is something which has to be encouraged.
Yes, that has to be encouraged. Actually, we have 3 types of madrasas. One is under state, the Seba, under Seba, and these madrasas are called as high madrasas. There is another variety which is under Assam Madrasa Education Board, and they are called pre-senior and senior madrasas. Their course is regulated by very well-known people, and they are framed by well-known people.
What is the third group?
Third group is Dini Madrasa, or Qawmi Madrasa, or Kharijia Madrasa. Now, at one point of time, these were not controlled by anybody. They did not have any umbrella organization. The Tanjim board is trying its best to bring all these categories of madrasas under its control, and as a result of which they have a particular course prescribed by the Tanjim. Then they have examination system and everything, just like any other board. Now, as a result of this, the course content you will find is modern. There you will find mathematics, science, social sciences, English, and so on and so forth. Now they are going to introduce computer. Computer course.
Right. So this is a good trend. I think they are having. This is a good trend. I'm running absolutely short of time. Mr. Speaker, your final comments. What is the road ahead then?
It's only education. If we can enhance the education part of it to all the communities equally,
Yeah.
then that is the only answer. Because educated people are never joining this kind of, except a few. In exceptional cases, they are too radicalized and all that, and probably they are getting a lot of funds and all that. Even a
Education, modern education, modern education and education in general is the key. Mr. Mohan Raj.
I think what Dr. Shaheen is doing is the best, de-radicalization of people, because educated, we have seen very educated people are getting into militancy. It's not only the uneducated people. So education is not the thing. And also what Dr. Ajay Sahani said is that, there are psychological deviants who are finding avenues to indulge in their deviancy by joining militancy, but that would be, I feel, a very small number. Majority of them are actually radicalized by the religion, and that is where we have to concentrate. And as people said that, that Wahhabi type of Islam, very extreme type of Islam, that is where you should attack. And there is two types of Islam, or different varieties of Islam. One is very peace loving maybe, and one is this radicalized, and ultimately the religious leaders have to clarify as to where they stand. See, many of them are very ambiguous about it.
Absolutely.
They should be very clear. And India, at least, the Indian religious leadership of Islam, they should clarify that
they should clarify
it is peace.
What? So, Arnav, finally, the community has a huge role to play along with the authorities.
Yeah. Here the community has a very important role to play. They have to look for signs of radicalization among the youth. Once they find that certain youths among their communities showing signs of radicalization, whether in their talks or in the social media, they have to bring in their fold. They have to demotivate them from taking such steps and fully make them aware of what is Islam, what is the country, the state of Sankara Azan truly means.
But
Okay.
Also, I feel that the police and intelligence agencies have to keep some eye on all these madrasas and other places.
No, I am sure they are doing it. I am sure that is a routine with the police, particularly in the border districts, located along.
There are too many of them. I don't know how far they will be effective.
Now, Mr. Sultan Sahin, how should the government fight radical Islam, and does the community has a role? We are sure the community has a role, but how should the government fight radical Islam? What are your thoughts, Mr. Sultan Sahin? Sultan Sahin.
The community does have a big role to play, but the community is still in denial. It's not just a case of complacency, but denial. And until today, you ask people and they will say, oh, what does it matter if even 40,000 people joined ISIS in a year from 86 countries around the world? Because what is their percentage in the 1.6 billion community in the world? So they think that this is a very, very minor problem, which is being, blown out of proportion by the media or the governments, etc. But that is not the case at all. You see, even if there is one Muslim who goes to a mosque, blows himself up, and kills himself and kills others in the mosque, other namazis, thinking that he will be rewarded by God with heaven for this, is something which should worry every Muslim in the world, even if one Muslim were to do that. But there are hundreds of thousands of people who are engaged in this kind of behavior, and we as a community are not very much concerned. As far as the governments are concerned, they are relying on ulama for doing radicalization, de-radicalization work, for preventing radicalization, etc. But what the ulama are doing is just spewing rhetoric. They are just saying Islam is a religion of peace, Islam has nothing to do with terrorism and stuff like that, and which is not having an impact, because these people, as I told you, are very well educated and they go deep into the Islamic theology.
Okay. Last words to you, Dr. Azai Sani. Is it as simple as what some of us believe? Do you think any one particular agency, whether it is the government, whether it is the community, whether it is the ulemas, can de-radicalize? Is de-radicalization easy? What do you think?
Well, I don't think any one of these groupings is responsible for the entire problem or for the solution to the problem. They all have to work in concert with one with the other. They have to develop a relationship of trust. But more than anything else, I think the problem is that particularly the community, but even the government and state agencies have not mastered the tools of communication and radicalization, de-radicalization. you find a far greater efficiency in the absorption, for instance, of communication technologies, of IT, by the radicalizers rather than by those who are trying to put out a de-radicalization message. Now, even if you take the ulema and all, as Sultan Shaheen had expressed it, they are sort of limited to a rhetoric of Islam is a religion of peace kind of thing, but they are not able to actually intervene effectively, continuously. This is very important, not only to intervene effectively, but to intervene continuously. It has to be a relentless, sustained effort.
Absolutely.
To put out a message that challenges and discredits extremist Islam and all extremist ideologies. Please understand, I would like to emphasize, Islamist terrorism is a very serious problem worldwide, but extremist ideologies of different hues are also taking root across the world today and in India.
All right, I think that was a very engaging discussion on the subject that we have decided to discuss today in the wake of the arrest of 3 men from Goalpara district who are described as ISIS sympathizers or ISIS inspired people. But at the end of the day, what we have understood from this discussion is that the situation is not alarming, but there is no scope for complacency. At the end of the day, it is not just the government or one single agency that can be responsible for finding a solution to this problem. It is both the government, community, and everybody concerned has to constantly hammer on the need to keep the radicalized elements out of the system so that peace prevails. On that note, I thank all my panelists for participating in Notice Tonight. Good night and goodbye.
Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.